Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Walrus workshop. My name is Z, and I work closely with the Walrus engineering team. Today, I'm going to show you how to get started on Walrus, the next generation decentralized blob storage system. And here's our mascot, Georgie the Walrus. As you can see, it looks like a blob. Here's today's agenda. We'll talk about how Walrus works, an example of a simple interaction, and another example of interacting with the Walrus CLI, and some more advanced topics. After that, I will pass the stage over to my friend and coworker, Daniel Levitt, and he will talk to you more about a more sophisticated use case built using Walrus storage, Walrus sites. So what is Walrus exactly? To put it into simple terms, it is essentially a decentralized Byzantine fault-tolerant storage solution. It uses SUI as orchestration layer and has deep interaction with SUI object system and SUI move.
However, you're not required to know SUI or SUI move in order to use and interact with Walrus.
Walrus supports both smart contract-based operations via SUI move and HTTP APIs via any programming languages of your choice.
Being a decentralized storage system, it can also theoretically be used as a data availability layer solution that supports certificate of availability and proof of inconsistency.
As a developer, you have two options to interact with Walrus. The first is via a publisher or an aggregator. A publisher allows you to write your file to the system, and an aggregator allows you to read your file from Walrus. You could interact with them via an HTTP interface or a browser, and they essentially act as an indirection layer for you. You can imagine having an account with them, and they will charge you a small fee for writing and reading blobs through them. So they provide a streamlined Web2 user experience at a small cost. And if they really want to provide you a fast read experience, they would use a cache or a CDN for your blobs. The second way is to interact directly with the Walrus client. We'll talk that a little bit more once we go through an example on how to use the publisher or an aggregator.
As we discussed earlier, interacting via a publisher or an aggregator is all about convenience. Here in the terminal, I have set my aggregator and my publisher address here. These are the testnet address, and they are essentially free to use. You can imagine that in the mainnet scenario, they will not be completely free. But interacting with them is extremely easy. So here I'm just putting a curl command here by storing a string called someString. And you can see I got a response back, and the Walrus network has said this particular string has already been certified, and it gave us back a blob ID and some transaction digest. So we didn't have to, create any kind of blockchain private public keys here at all. Instead, we just called the publisher via a HTTP interface, and it gave us a response. And we can take a look at this transaction digest. So I'm going to copy this. After pasting this transaction digest in our Explorer here in testnet, you can see that what is exactly going on in this particular Walrus transaction. And at the end, we have an event being emitted saying the blob has been certified by the entire Walrus network. You can also create a file and upload this file to Walrus network as well. So I'm going to just do that. So here I'm calling the same exact endpoint with different query parameters, but it essentially sets the time for this file to expire on the network. Execute this command. And there we go. We have created a new file on the Walrus network. And it has also been certified. And you can find the API spec for the publisher here at publisher-devnet.walrus.space/v1/API. So pretty easy. Similar things can be done for the aggregator. So you can use this curl command here. What you need to do is to replace the blob ID with the blob ID that you want to retrieve. So we're going to target our old file here. I'm going to rename this to a new file. Take a look at the content from the file here. There it is. It's the same thing as what we have saved earlier. So as you can see, using the publisher and aggregator, it's very, very easy to interact with the Walrus network here. And you can pretty much implement this thing in any programming language of your choice, as long as they can make an HTTP call. And you can find the API spec for the aggregator here in the link below. We have now covered the easiest way to interact with Walrus. As you can see, there's no need to install anything at all. Give it a go. You might like it. You can learn more about the Walrus HTTP API by visiting the link shown here. However, for some applications, you might want to skip the aggregators and publishers and interact directly with Walrus. I got you covered. Introducing Walrus CLI. Walrus CLI is basically the client software that interacts directly with the storage nodes, which actually stores the blob you either reads or writes. And the Sui Walrus contract, which handles the payment and governance aspect of the storage network. The process to set this up is a bit more complicated because the client needs to be able to talk to the Walrus contract deployed on Sui. We would need to install the Sui binary, the Walrus binary, and configure the Walrus system object. You can find the detailed instructions by going to the link shown here. Feel free to pause the video and come back once you have installed everything. Now that you have installed everything, let's first by checking to see if we can connect to the Walrus network. There it is. We got some basic information about the Walrus system itself. Next, we can use the Walrus CLI to store and retrieve some blobs or files. We can store the same file again using walrus store command. So the file is stored here. We can now check to see if we can download this file again. We can first check the blob status by using the status command. As you can see, it is certified. Let's retrieve this file again. And to do that, we would use walrus read followed by the blob ID. And here I'm using the -o argument to save it to a file. There it is. The retrieval is successful. And look at the content of the file. It's the exact same thing as the original file. Keep in mind, the Walrus network does not care about the file format. You can upload anything you want. I'm just using a text file as an example, but you can imagine uploading images, videos, funny GIFs that you can find on the internet, anything and everything.
We have now went over the process of using Walrus CLI to store and retrieve blobs from Walrus network. Again, once you finish the installation process, it's fairly easy to use, and that's the whole point of it, is to be able to interact with a decentralized storage network in a very fast and efficient way. Keep in mind that all Walrus client commands are also available in JSON mode. In this mode, all the command line flags of the original CLI command can be specified in JSON format. The JSON mode is more geared toward programmatic access to the CLI. I have shown you the magic. Let's discuss how it works. Here are some terminologies we will be using: slivers, shards, and storage nodes. Each blob is erasure encoded into many slivers, and slivers are then assigned to a shard, and storage nodes hold one or many shards within a storage epoch. First, a user acquires a storage resource of appropriate size and duration on-chain, either by directly buying it on the Walrus system object or a secondary market. A user can split, merge, and transfer own storage resources. When users want to store a blob, they first erasure code it and compute the blob ID. Then they can perform the following steps themselves or use a publisher to perform steps on their behalf. The user goes on chain and updates a storage resource to register the blob ID with the desired size and lifetime.
This then emits a blockchain event
received by storage nodes.
After the user gets confirmation, they then continue the upload.
The user sends the blob metadata to all storage nodes and each of the blob slivers to the storage nodes that currently manages the corresponding shard. A storage node managing a shard receives a sliver and checks it against the blob ID. It also checks that there is a blob resource with the blob ID that is authorized to store a blob. If that is correct, the storage node then signs a statement that it holds the sliver for blob ID and metadata and returns it to the user. The user puts together the signatures returned from storage nodes into an availability certificate and submits it to the SUI blockchain. When the certificate is certified on-chain, an availability event for the blob ID is emitted on SUI blockchain, and all other storage nodes seek to download any missing shards for the blob ID. This event emitted by SUI is the point of availability for the blob ID. After the point of availability, and without user involvement, storage nodes will sync and recover any missing metadata and slivers.
Lastly, I want to encourage everyone who is interested to visit docs.walrus.site. There are some examples here that show you how to exactly track some of these events that we mentioned previously, as shown here. The doc site also has some concrete examples on how to use Walrus CLI JSON mode in your code, as shown here. That is everything from me today. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the stage to my coworker Daniel Levitt, and he's going to talk to you more about Walrus sites.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel, one of the DevRel engineers at the SUI Foundation, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how to deploy a decentralized website onto SUI using Walrus. Walrus Sites is an application that's built on top of Walrus that allows anyone to create a decentralized website that's powered by SUI and Walrus. Deploying a Walrus site is as easy as using our site builder tool, CLI. There's no need to manage any servers or create any complex configurations. All you need to do is upload your source code to Walrus. And because Walrus sites are powered by SUI, every individual Walrus site is owned by an address on SUI and therefore can be exchanged, shared, updated, and anything else that you can do with objects on SUI. And for example, in addition to this means that you can use Walrus sites on top of other SUI primitives, such as the SUI-NS name service. We use SUI-NS names to allow for more human-readable domain names for these Walrus sites. Because Walrus sites is built on top of Walrus, there's no risk of your site ever being taken down or having being wiped. Before I go into actually deploying a Walrus site, I want to show you a use case that we currently see already on SUI today. And the use case is NFTs with their own personalized and ownable website. So I'm going to navigate to this minting site of this app we have. So this is called the Flatland collection. I'm already connected. I'm going to mint a new NFT. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this new NFT on the Explorer really quick. So this is the image or GIF of our NFT, and we can see that the SVG that generates this image is actually stored on chain. So this NFT is 100% owned and is on chain. And then we can see here that there's a link associated with this NFT. And let's go to this link. Okay, so we can see here that this exactly matches the shape and color of our NFT. So, and this is because that this is a site that's deployed onto Walrus, and is meant to exactly match the attributes of our NFT. And this is directly associated with this NFT and always will be. So how this works is during the minting, the NFT is minted as well as the new Walrus site is deployed programmatically. So then they can be associated with each other. So I'd highly recommend you check this app out. It's a really cool use case of Walrus, and I think it can it's just the beginning of what we'll see with Walrus's composability. Okay. Cool. So now I'm going to actually go through and demonstrate how to deploy a Walrus site. And I'm going to be following this guide right here, which I will provide the link to, so you guys can all follow along on your own time. And there's really 3 simple steps. You have to build the website that you want to deploy. You upload it to Walrus, and this 3rd step, which is optional but recommended, is get a SWI name to point to the Walrus site, so then you have a better human readable domain name. Okay, so the first step is building a site. And for this template, or for this example, I'm going to be using a template app that we have, so it speeds up the process. So I'm going to go ahead and call this, and I will select the React Client app option, and we'll use the default name. Okay, cool. So I'll navigate to this new site, and we can see all the source files are here. And I'm going to install the dependencies. Okay, cool. So now you could run a local instance just to check that the website's working as expected, but I'm going to save that to the end for a surprise. So I will now be running the next command, which is generating the static build of our site. Okay, cool. So now we have this dist directory, which contains the static HTML file as well as some JavaScript and CSS assets. So now that we have that, we can start uploading it to Walrus. Note that when you do this on your side, you'll have to install the CLIs that are required. I already had those installed, so I can go ahead and start deploying. So we need to include a config file, which contains information about the Walrus package that is deployed onto SWI. Okay, so this is the path to the config file, and then we can hit publish, and then we want to type in the directory that we want to publish. Okay, hit publish. So right now, each of those files in the dist directory are being uploaded individually to Walrus. Okay, awesome. So we can see that these were the operations performed during our publishing, and now we get this object ID, and this is the object ID of the Walrus site object that's on SWI, and we also have the live URL of this site. So this site is now completely uploaded to Walrus. You can view this site, and you can be done at this step, but we want our users to have a better URL to navigate to. So I'm actually going to copy this object ID and navigate to our testnet name service. Okay. So I'll call this ETH San Francisco. We'll see if that's available. Yeah. Okay. So now we'll navigate to our ETH San Francisco name, we will link it, and I'll paste in the address of our Walrus site. Okay, so now instead of going to that non-human readable domain name, all we have to do is go to eth.sanfrancisco.walrus.site. Awesome. And this is the starter template that we have deployed. And just like any other site, you can connect your wallet. And just as a tester, you can see like these are all the objects that this signed in account has. So yeah, so this is a fully deployed site onto Walrus. It can never be taken down, and will exist on the site as long as it is paid for. Okay, so that's the demo. So if you're interested in learning more about Walrus and maybe learning more about how the Walrus site's application actually works behind the scenes, I would check out the developer docs. They have all the information you need there to learn more and get started. And we also just ended our first ever Walrus hackathon. The voting is over, but I'm linking the community voting page so that you can view all of the projects that were built for this hackathon. Thank you.